We are live. We are live. Good morning, everybody. As people come into the room, we're going to go ahead and get started. It has been a while, but we are here. So much has happened in our world of education since we last had a show. It's probably been close to a month since we've been able to have a show, and that's
Well,
been
good morning, my wonderful co-host.
good. More. I was just getting ready to, you know. Anyway, um, you make me sick. Here we see. Notice he started first. He started first. It was not I said the
Love
cat.
you.
Anyway, good morning, sir. How have you been?
I have been, I've been doing well. I have been doing well. How have you been, my love?
Crazy. It's a lot going on. It's real crazy.
Yeah, I have. Don't judge me because I only get to eat Christmas tree cakes once a year during this time of year, and so I eat. They're like almost like zebra cakes, almost, but they have all. It's just like during Easter time. I eat all peeps all the time by the
People
like
like
cake
you.
load.
People like you irritate my soul. First of all, I'm going to skip over the fact that you like peeps. That's like 1% of the population. But second of all, people like you irritate my soul. You eat all day, every day, and you eat the worst. Like sometimes you eat very healthy, and then sometimes you eat like when I sat there and watched you put together that diabetes cake with the two sugar cookies with the in the middle. I said,
With the buttercream in the middle.
right. I said, and
Oh
you gonna
god.
gain a pound. If I walk past a zebra cake in the store, I gain 10 pounds. You irritate my soul.
Oh
Good
god.
morning, Diva Law. Good morning, Danny. Thank y'all.
Hey people, hey Daddy. Good morning, everybody.
Anyway, okay. Anyway, so you guys, in the world of education, since we have been here, so much has happened, right? And so we're going to talk a little bit today about now that the election is over, what happens now? What is the Biden Harris transition team talking about? They're going to put in place. What policies are they going to put in place, or what they would like to put in place, versus what we've gotten? What types of policies need to be reversed and things like that. And then we're going to talk about our dream team. Like if somebody called us on the phone and said who should be the next Department of Education, like who would we say? What names would we throw out there? I'm gonna throw the baton to El Teddy first. Um, what is it gonna what how do you think the education landscape is going to change? I mean, we know that with every administration, the plan versus the actuality is very different. But in your mind, what is it that you think? How do you think things are going to change? What are we going to see?
Well, let me say a couple things. Leading up to that, a lot of people don't know and don't realize most unions and education circles did not like the Obama plan.
Yeah,
They did.
I'm gonna come back to that. I'm gonna let you finish,
Okay.
but remind me.
Okay.
I'm gonna come back to that.
But Biden, when I looked at his education plan, there was so much in it. It has so many lofty, and that's putting it mildly, very lofty goals out there. You could see his wife's, um, had a lot to do
Fingerprint.
with. Her
Yeah.
fingerprint was all over it because you
Mm-hmm.
could see some of the traditional wish lists that an educator would have on there. However, being honest, you could see that it is centrist leaning with not everything, but with a large portion of their agenda with education. And it centers around, he made a lot of promises to a lot of the unions. He was backed by the union. His wife is a member of AFT, not AFT, his wife is a member of NEA. And you could see that there is that whole part of it. I think that they're going to go away from everything Betsy DeVos did, which they have to. I mean, I don't care if you're left leaning, centrist leaning, or whatever. You got to go away from everything Betsy DeVos did. But I just am curious to see if he's able to get a lot of this stuff done, and we'll get into the mud and minutia of all of that in a little bit. But yeah, I can't say like one word or put one phrase on what his plan will look like, because it's just so many things that I saw as I was reading his plan.
And going back to what you just said about the Obama situation, and I tell people this all the time, as an educator, I actually was torn in the primary between Hillary and Obama, and it came down to education, because a lot of people don't realize their platforms were very, very similar. Where they had a large difference, it was their education plan. Because Hillary Clinton, I mean, I'm just oversimplifying. Hillary Clinton wanted to throw No Child Left Behind out. Like, listen, it's failing. It's not working. Let's throw the whole thing out and let's start from scratch. And Obama was like, oh, no, it can be fixed. And I was like, oh, no, you don't know what you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? And the other problem was Obama really thought that Michelle Reed was the second coming. And we already know how I feel about her. So it really did for me. And I'm still not going to, we don't talk about how we voted, but that really was a major, major issue for me. And people assumed, oh, you're going to vote for the black man. I'm like, no, I'm a teacher. I'm going to vote for the person who's going to help, because we had been living under No Child Left Behind. And so I don't think people understood how much of a hotbed that was for educators during that.
It really was.
So just
it really was.
Like you said,
I remember a lot of my friends who were outside of education, and some inside education, they really had a problem with me because I was a huge Hillary Clinton supporter during that 2008 election. It wasn't until until Hillary Clinton pulled. I was not an Obama supporter at the beginning of the 2008. And I remember that ended up being my first DNC where I was a delegate, and it was hard for me to get in. I almost didn't get in because I was such a huge Hillary supporter, but those people in our wing that supported Hillary kind of pushed me in there and stuff like that. So,
right. Anyway. So that's a good point that you bring up, because I think in education circles, most of us who understood and were living under. Here's the thing: if you had been teaching before No Child Left Behind, you understood. If you came in during the era of No Child Left Behind, then it's just like anything else. If you didn't know what it was before, you didn't know. But if you were teaching before that era, you definitely understood the difference and understood what things were. Okay, so with that being said, we have had an election.
Really?
We have.
You don't say.
They didn't even finish calling the final two states until yesterday. So we have had an election, and the Democrats are back in the White House. It is yet to be determined what the Senate is going to look like. The House of Representatives look blue. So that's an interesting sandwich. You have the White House, you have the House, but the Senate is Our best option right now is for us to win those runoffs in Georgia and force the tie, which, that's political. We don't want to go too far into that rabbit hole, but we know that has a lot to do with what gets done. Yes, the Department of Education is a entity. They have a head, but we also know that budgets and all of those things come into play as well.
Let me interject as well, and this is specifically with regard to what we're talking about. Those cabinet appointments, secretaries are appointed by the Senate.
They're approved by the Senate.
Approved, I'm sorry, not appointed. Thank you for changing, but meaning Biden can appoint whoever he wants, but in order for them to, sit and govern, they still have to be approved by the Senate. That is going to play a significant role in who he picks if it's controlled by the Republicans, because make no bones about it, he's going to have to pull some Republican votes in order to get appointments through. And so whomever he decides to select is going to have to probably be somebody center leaning and somebody who he can align with a few Republican senators that he can, win over.
And that's true. We're gonna get to your question in a second, Quintessential, because that's a really good question.
That's a long discussion too.
It's a long discussion. I'm gonna give you one or two bullet points, but it is a very, very long discussion. But I agree with you as well, El Teddy, because the one thing that we have seen is something you said in one of your lives. I don't know, in the last week or so, because we've been doing a lot of political conversation over the last couple of weeks. But one of the things you said is that the Republican Party is forever changed because they saw that being a bully, being not, going against the grain, not being nice. I mean, however you want to word it, it got them what they wanted. And so you have people like the Mitch McConnells of the world who will look. I'm going to even use Lindsey Graham as a perfect example. 3 years ago, you said one thing. People are literally rolling the tape back in your face, and you're like, yeah, but I don't care what I said then. I'm not doing it. Like, it's just like it's like you're not even going to pretend. And so the polite policy has been, unless someone is egregious, I mean, just totally egregious, most presidents get their cabinet appointees approved. But we know that we're no longer in those times. Right. We're no longer in the times of just doing what is the accepted, what is the norm, what has always been past practice. We know that that's not where we're. So you're right. The fact that Biden, once upon a time could pretty much put down whoever he wants. I mean, hell, they approved Ben Carson for God's sake. But once upon a time, anybody who pretty much just, halfway fit the bill could get in. And so we know we're not living it. So you're right. He's going to have to be a lot more careful in his cabinet picks than he once had to be.
The other thing in this, and like I said, I'm not going to try and wax political, but what we have to understand is, although Biden did win, Trump still got more votes than any other Republican.
Mm-hmm. People keep talking about how many votes Biden got, but I don't think people are paying attention to how many votes Trump. And that's the thing.
And what I was going to say that's why there's no need for them to try to negotiate. They have a base. Their base is galvanized, and what they probably will do at this point is double down, knowing that 2022 is coming.
Let me tell you something. And then we're going to
2010.
Right. And let me tell you something. I'm going to go back and I'm going to say this and then we're going to get back to the question. But pay attention to the news today and you will understand why El Teddy just said what he said. They are planning a massive quote unquote protest, because I don't know what the hell they protested, but okay, protest. They are planning for today in downtown DC, the Trump supporters. And I don't know how many are going to show up, but I promise you it's going to be on every network. So you'll see what it is. And that is the reason why the Mitch McConnells and his cronies are sitting back like, whatever. So to give up for myself, I can't speak for El Teddy because I'm sure certain things look different in certain parts of the country, but I'm going to speak for myself. My biggest issue with the No Child Left Behind, one of my biggest issues was the whole testing piece of it. Testing turned into, oh God, I can't even put it into words. And as for for me as a social studies teacher, at the time I was teaching in a junior high school / middle school, because it was a junior high, but then it turned to a middle school. Anyway, my biggest issue was that my subject was no longer respected nor thought about as important. And so when we have these conversations, these men on the streets, and we're like, why don't kids know about civics? Why don't kids know their history? Oh my God, the education system is failing. It's because testing came in and I was told, this is what I was told. When I started complaining, I was the department chair and I was like, hey, this is crazy. And what I was told was, well, we don't really care if the kids learn history. We need them to be able to pass the test. And so my job became a supplement of the English department, because basically all I was supposed to be doing is teaching those kids how to read a passage, how to answer the question from the passage. So I know El Teddy's vision is different because he was an English teacher and his subject was tested. But for me, that was my biggest issue, is that it was like, oh, well, we don't really care if the kids are learning American history. We don't really care about that. You know what I'm saying? And so that was my, I mean, again, we could have a whole show on No Child Left Behind.
No Child Left Behind has so many things. I think that was probably one of the paramount issues, polarizing issues with No Child Left Behind. What I will say is this: testing and what it did was it made people draw lines in the sands with how they felt about testing, as if testing was this horrible thing, assessments were this horrible thing, and that's just not the case. The problem came in when funding for schools began to be dictated by test scores, and that is when state boards, I should say, of education, school districts, when they saw that, okay, there's school accountability grades and and formulas that they have that associate itself directly from test scores and decide how much funding a particular school can and does get, how much funding and resources a school can and does get, and not solely, but almost solely and almost primarily based on those test scores. So what school district said, hey, I need this money. So I don't care what y'all got going on. We're going to put all of our resources and everything we got into making sure that they focus on this test, as opposed to educating and edifying the student as a person. And that includes the full arm of education, the arts, the history classes, the vocational classes, and so many other things. You focus on only tested subject areas, and it took away from the true art form of teaching. There's a whole wave of, I came in during the No Child Left Behind, and if not for some older teachers that took me under their wing and really taught me the way, there are a lot of teachers that came in during that time that did not get all of the rudimentary parts of teaching. All they know is how to teach to a test, or how to be under that whole style of education, and that's kind of dangerous.
Right. And that's really dangerous. Right. Like I said, and maybe I'll put this on our list, because we could actually do a whole show on what was wrong with No Child Left Behind and where we are today and all of that. We actually could probably do a whole show on that. But I'm gonna say this, and then we're gonna move on, because again, Quintessential asked another great question. And one of your questions is one of the questions people that's already on our agenda to talk about. Miss Quintessential, stop trying to be our producer. Stop trying to be the producer, Miss Quintessential. But and I think that, so El Teddy and I are sort of in agreement. We're just looking at it from our perspectives of what we taught, because I feel the same way. And it's sort of like what came first, the chicken or the egg? I don't have a problem with testing. I think there should be a measure. El Teddy, I'm a data person. That's what I'm about to be doing all day today. When I get done with this, is working on data for my 9th grade team. So I'm a data person. I have no problem with the testing. The problem was when, like you said, because testing was connected to funding, then school districts, because a lot of times they had to, in order to keep their funding, that's where the focus became. So anyway, moving on. So essentially we kind of were saying the same thing. We just, again, from our different perspectives. So yeah. So you said, thank you for reminding the folks about Trump has a significant portion of the vote, but what does the base want for education? I'm gonna let El Teddy answer that. I'm gonna let you go first, actually.
Let me say hello to everybody else that came in the room. I know we had a few people that came into the room. I don't want y'all to think.
Thank you for everybody.
Quintessential, China White, Danny, Miss Witness. So, and all of the people in the bushes that may be watching all across Al Gore's good internet. Anyway, Trump's base, they don't have a singular, or not Trump's base, I should say the right's base, or that conservative base. They don't have a singular what's the word I'm looking for, ideology. But some of the things that they really care about is charter schools. They are here for the charter schools, because and to a certain degree private schools, but definitely charter schools, because that is when you think of education as a business, when the education sector becomes part of capitalism, and you can now make a significant amount of money with charter schools. That goes into a lot of the stuff that we just talked about with Nickelby, where if you can develop a standardized test, if you can develop an educational program that you can sell, and then make it where now the state has to make their respective school districts responsible for purchasing that or buying that, that becomes something that's pushed as well. They are very anti-unions. They are very anti. They want no parts of union. You have states like the state of Texas. They don't have teachers unions in the state of Texas at all. And so what ends up happening is a lot of things, a lot of rights and privileges that teachers have and appreciate when you don't have a union. And we could probably have a whole nother show about that, what unions do, some of the privileges you get by being in the teachers union. But they want no parts of teachers unions. So I know those two things: the charter school, the push for charter schools, the push what the push against unions. And while at one point there was the big push toward standardized testing, and there still is, they reject the push that there was a few years ago for Common Core, and for there to be a national educational standard. They do not like that. The Republicans certainly want no parts of a national state or educational standards. They more so say no, let the states do it, and the states can dictate, because then you have some states that can say, we don't want to teach evolution, we want to teach more creationism, or stuff like that, or we can take this part out of the history books because we say that that's not important in our state standards. And that goes into a lot more political things. So those are things when you start to talk about not having a national standard and having a more statewide standard, it allows for some of the people who want to have revisionist histories about history, or who want to shape your child's education on things that may not be sound educational pedagogy, to be able to do what they want to do. That's just a couple of things that I know I'll ranted on and on and on about that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And again, that's another show that we're going to do one day. Our Common Core, because El Teddy and I disagree on Common Core. The example he just used was a really good example of why I could support Common Core, but that's not anyway. We can get there. We can get there. For myself, I think that El Teddy just did a good job of he was more diplomatic than I would have been. And what I mean by that is, in my mind, I'm like, they don't know what they want. They know what sounds good to them at the time. Just like I just look at Trump voters as a whole, and I see that cult-like mentality. And it's like, because you say you want charter schools or you're pro-charter until it no longer fits what you want. Because the reality of the situation anyway. So anyway, yeah, I'm agree with everything. Ditto what El Teddy just said. Because I was getting ready to go left with it, But yeah,
and they do change their mind. And I'll be honest with you, it was that base, that right conservative, that initially pushed for Common Core. But then what happened was, when it came out and they actually had people within education that knew education, that had studied, that came up with Common Core, the standards that they came up with did not align with what they wanted to see in the standard. And the spin that they wanted to put on education. And so when it was pushed out there, they had already kind of rubber stamped to say, oh yeah, we're all agreed to it. And it came out and they didn't kind of like some of the standards, and they went, yeah, we're just not going to do that. It's kind of like they do all of the time. We said we was going to do it. We told you we signed these papers, but yeah, now that I think about it, I don't want to do that anymore. So yeah.
Yeah. So, China White brought up a good point. And again, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Once again,
hey, Carolyn.
Volvo, Carolyn. Hey, you guys.
Volvo.
China White brought up a good point, and I think a lot of people didn't realize this. That yes, the Department of Education is it's not the youngest, because Homeland Security is now, I think, is the youngest. But yeah, Department of Education is a baby. You know, it is not that old of a department. So you know, it was started under the Carter years. He was really big on education. He made a big deal of sending his daughter to DC public schools when they were president, not sending her to a private school. He was criticized for that because DC public schools were not considered that great at the time. But so yeah, he was a large proponent of public education. So let's get to, I'm gonna read a couple of things off to you guys, so that you kind of have an idea of what's been going on, while you may or may not have been paying attention to what Betsy DeVos has been doing. Here's just a couple of things that she's done in the last 4 years as being the Secretary of Education. She made changes to Title IX rules, including, and for those who don't know, Title IX is the equality rule, that what you do for the boys, you got to do for the girls. I'm oversimplifying that, but that's essentially what it is. Rule that allows accused rapists to cross-examine their accusers. This move was widely criticized. So again, I could take it to a college level, but this could be on any level. At a college level, if you are saying that you were raped on campus, what she did was she changed the rules that allowed you to be cross-examined, not by an attorney, but by the person that you're accusing of raping you. Okay. Under DeVos, education has been 9 times less likely than in the Obama administration to take on Title IX complaints that are related to sexual orientation or gender. So again, we're talking about protection for minorities under her. The Department of Education has significantly, slowed investigations into alleged fraudulent student loans. Reports show that under Betsy DeVos, the department had been working against state law enforcement officials and federal regulators from pursuing legal action against loan companies accused of misleading student borrowers. So again, all of us who have student loans, like I know my student loans are federal, but there are a lot of private companies who do student loans, and the interest rates are through the roof. I have friends. El Teddy, I think you're frozen. I have friends. Oh, no, you're not. You were just saying, I'm sorry. I thought you were. Because you were just. Sorry. My bad.
Good morning, Patty Duke. Good morning, Abby.
Hey, my bad. Hey, boo. Hey, Abby. Hey, Patty Duke. DeVos threatened to cut funding to schools that did not fully reopen in fall of 2020. So these are just, again, I'm giving you, these are just the hot spots, okay? You could probably Google Betsy DeVos policies and get a plethora of things, but here are just the hot spots. So again, if you're one of those people that is a victim of predatory lending and you don't understand why, it has, what's going, this, and then minorities and stuff like that. So these are some of the
also under her and the Trump administration, they widened or deepened the regulations about affirmative action in college admissions.
Yeah,
they because I know that was something that started before the Trump administration, but they went full scale down that road, and they really made it they took away federal funding from a lot of college institutions that decided to or that were participating in practices that they deemed to be affirmative action type practices and things like that. So it was a lot that went. They definitely made it much. They lessened the regulations because they're very big on less regulations. They lessened the regulations for charter schools and so forth with their licensing. There's still some state regulations and things like that, but the federal part of it, they did lessen those regulations and so forth.
Yeah, and again, and ultimately, let's not forget. Hey, everybody in the bushes, thank y'all for being here. And once again, let's not forget that she was very, very pro charter school. And before she became Secretary of Education, she led a nonprofit that was specifically geared towards privatizing public education. So let's not forget her roots and the things that have been done in that arena. So that's just to tell you what has been going on. Again, that's just highlights, okay? So Biden, there are certain things that Biden wants to immediately reverse upon coming into office. And those are some of the things, the Title IX issues, I can't get it out. The Title IX issue is definitely at the top of his list. The things that have been done to dismantle and to take away the protections under Title IX are definitely things that he immediately wants to do. He wants to come up with a loan forgiveness program that is fair. I can speak as for myself that under, actually, I'll say it started under Bill Clinton. There was a loan forgiveness program under Bill Clinton that I actually qualified for, and I was able to get a portion of my student loans from my first master's degree forgiven. Not all of them.
I did see something in his plan where he said he wanted to do a sweeping $10,000 reduction in.
Yeah, I'll take whatever he giving.
Student loan. Well, you know, he wanted to reduce
I know,
by $10,000 across the board. I don't know how he's gonna get that through Congress, but that's a whole nother
that's a whole nother thing. Yeah. But I know that plan that started under Clinton, it was, you know, the criteria was very liberal, for lack of a better word. You just had to teach at a Title I school for a certain amount of years, and you pretty much qualified. That didn't mean you were guaranteed to get it, but you were qualified to apply. And then the amount that you got was based on different variables. But again, I got a couple of $1,000s, which is better than nothing. But that has pretty much dwindled to where we are now, where the last program that I even saw, and this was a few years ago, the criteria before you're even eligible to apply is that you have to have 24 months of on-time payments. And like, there's no grace period. No, I paid it on the second instead of the first. Oh, I sent $215 instead of $220. It has to be 24 consecutive months before you're even eligible to apply. Now, the caveat is, if you can do it, it's like a 100% forgiveness situation. But the reality is, and I'm gonna speak for myself, the problem is most people can't afford what they're being asked to pay on the front end to be able to do it for 2 years straight. And that's where the problem comes in. And that's what they said. I think the last article I read, they said less than 10% of people who applied were eligible because of the criteria. So
also, with the loans right now, the Trump administration passed bills and stuff like that has all loans on hold right now. Supposedly, all student loans are supposed to be on hold right now because of COVID, and that came with the stimulus legislation and the COVID legislation. And Biden, if it lapses or things like that, that's one of the first things that he did say he wanted to put in place was to keep that going because of COVID and everything going on, the economy, people losing their job, to continue to put that hold on education. On student loans. While we're going down this road, so let's just tackle this.
Okay.
What young man plans to do with regard to what is on his education plan. So I had it pulled up. So I wanted to touch.
Nope. Get it on up now. Pull it on up. Pull it on up.
Touch the bullet points. You know me. That's my thing. I do all of the heavy lifting around here. All right. So I'm not gonna read it word for word. I'm not gonna do that to y'all. One of the things that he talked about. Wait, hold on. Hold on, y'all. Give me just a second. I'm sorry. Boy.
I know that's right, Miss Witt. Take some of these loans off my back, baby. Okay. Yeah, that's the reality why he's looking for that. So many of us coming out of college are already working at a deficit, you know. We already have a debt on us, you know, that yeah.
All right. So there does seem to be, because his wife is a teacher and she said that she wants to continue. She teaches at a community college now, but she does come from K through 12 education. And she says she wants to continue teaching at this community college while her husband is in the White House. We'll see how far that goes. We'll see how long that lasts. But anyway, they want to increase the salaries of teachers across the country. However, they want to do this by tripling the funding for Title One. Tripling. Which I think first is going to be a hard feat to
Yeah,
get
that's gonna be rough.
Congress. That's a lot of money. We're talking, because Title One is what now, about $5 billion or somewhere around there. No, I think it's 15. I think Title One funds are around 15 billion with the B dollars of the budget. If you tripled that, you go from 15 to 45 billion with the B. That's a hard sell.
And you know, like I know, that ain't gonna trickle down to nobody's paycheck. Not
But
a
here's
teacher.
the other part
Not
of
a
that.
teacher.
The part of that is, what if you're not at a Title One school?
That's true too.
That's not fair to those teachers, because there are, and here's the truth of the matter. There are schools that are not Title One. They may not be in, and they're also not in the most affluent neighborhoods either. So whereas you may have the schools that are in some of the most affluent neighborhoods that have the parent involvement in the PTSA or PTOs funneling all of this money into the schools, what about those schools that aren't Title One that don't have that? And you just try to make it happen.
And if we're going to, and you know, and that goes into a whole nother conversation, but if we're going to use the term public education, and let's use the term public education, it's not the parents' responsibility. Just because they are affluent, just because they can, what if they decide to stop? Now you have put that school at a deficit. It's not the school's job. So, you know, like you said, the funding, anyway, go ahead.
That's a whole nother. They want to you know, invest in programs like making teachers more things like mentors or leaders and different things like that. But they also want to use funds that they're going to get from these Title One funds to help supplement the teachers' pay, or pay them extra for doing those extra you know, duties and responsibilities in mentorship and leadership and community activism. I talked about the student loan forgiveness stuff. They're going to have a new comprehensive student loan forgiveness program, and they haven't unsheathed all of that, but they're going to do that. They want to double the number of school psychologists, counselors, nurses, and social workers and other health professionals for mental health, but I'm sure in the day of COVID also for their physical health as well. So they want to double that. One of the things that one of the numbers that they put out there is, I'll just read it. The current school psychologist to student ratio in the country is roughly 1,400 to 1, while experts say it should be at most 700 to 1. That's a gap of about 35,000 to 60,000 school psychologists. And that's why a lot of times teachers, we have to end up being teacher, psychologist, parent, social worker, you know, pastor, you know, love coach, and all of those other things in between.
Life counselors. I'll be like Ayala, fixing people's life and stuff. Yeah.
Let me look here. They wanted to
right, Miss Witt. She said that rabbit hole right there. Exactly.
But they want to increase the budget for school infrastructures, because as a whole, the country has a D+ rating in terms of the facilities, physical plant, and infrastructure of K through 12 public schools. So they want to increase the funds Now they said that it's underfunded by $46 billion for the type stuff. They haven't said how much they plan to put into that, but that's how much they said that they're underfunded. And also they talked about now it needs to be looked at more because of COVID and some of the things that must be done in order to get kids back in school. I'm not going to even go to the NRA part because that's a whole nother story and a whole nother ball game that we're not going to go down. I'm just looking at some of the major bullet points. More incorporate more diversity, training, and they say bridge the gap in between white and non-white school districts. And they want to increase the funding to bridge that gap by $23 billion with a B. I'm sorry, I should have just wrote it down for myself.
It's okay.
They talked. There's a lot of emphasis on the Title I, low income communities, communities of color, and so forth. And that they talked about reinstating Obama Biden administration's actions to diversify our schools, meaning increasing not only the diversity within the student body, but the diversity within the actual teachers. They talked about the importance of students of color being taught by teachers of color as well, and the importance that studies in the science has shown that goes a long way with helping students stay motivated to stay in school. They talked about IDEA, the fact that the federal government is supposed to provide 40% of the extra cost for special education, but right now they're only covering 14%, and they're supposed to be covering 40%. They want to expand vocational education, and because they've gotten a lot of schools have gotten away. Some schools districts have started to get more into the fine arts, and a lot more of the arts and things like that, a little, but there is a complete dismissal of vocational education. So they do want to introduce the requirement for some type of certification that you leave if you're not going to college, having some type of certification, vocational certification. And I talked about that on an earlier on one of our previous sessions back in my home district of Miami-Dade County. You have to graduate either with an AP credit, credit for an AP, getting college credit through an AP class, or get some type of certification. Serve, Save, MCSE, Microsoft certified, one of the certifications, vocational certifications, in order to graduate. So that's something that they're talking about doing nationwide.
And again, if you've been in education long enough, you saw the shift. When I first started teaching, I was at a middle school and we had woodworking and auto mechanics and they had that stuff. I mean, they didn't, and that was at a middle school. And then you saw all of that stuff being eliminated. And as a result, those jobs were eliminated. But go ahead.
They want to start using Pell Grants to invest more money in dual or enrollment programs nationwide. That sounds great, but what is that going to do for the students actually in college that need the Pell Grants? Because there's not an infinite amount of money in the Pell Grants, but that's a whole nother story. They want to invest more they want to have a nationwide 3 to 4 year old pre-K program.
Yeah, universal pre-K.
Universal pre-K.
They did that. They did that here in DC, and it was a nightmare. But go ahead.
And I don't think that it can't be done, but I think sometimes they just have an idea, but the actual planning and putting
it can be done, but a lot of things were not foreseen. And so when it started happening, for example, you had universal pre-K, but because it's a public school, we couldn't turn anybody away if they were 3 years old. So they were 3 years old. They had to put in, the city council had to put in legislation about them being potty trained, because that wasn't there in the beginning. So you had parents dropping their 3-year-old kids who were still in diapers. So now you have these, professionals with master's degrees and PhDs or whatever, and they changing diapers all day. Now they remedied the situation, but again, those were the things that nobody thought about that when they said, oh, we're going to have pre-K for all 3rd and 4th graders. 3 and 4-year-olds. And nobody think about the 3-year-old that wasn't potty trained. But go ahead. That's just one example.
That's the basic. That's the basics of what he. That's most of it. There are other things I'm sure I just left off, but that's the basis of what he of his education plan.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of lofty goals there.
Yeah,
how much will be able to be implemented is a different story. Because you talk about that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And then, like we said earlier, if you're centering all of this around Title I, yeah, it's more than just Title I.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So yeah, that and again, those are the goals, and that goes back to what we were saying about with the whole Ice Cube situation. Like, a plan is just that, it's a plan. There's so many variables that go into a plan before anything is seen, and everybody knows that. Like, the plans are already set at a 10, knowing that in a good administration you're going to get the 5, and so
here's the part that I want to introduce that is not going to be popular amongst my fellow educators, but I'm just thinking about all educators as a whole. There's going to be a lot of emphasis placed on public schools, K through 12 education, but charter schools are here, like it or not. And even if we start to put more regulations, or making it harder for charter schools, the ones that we already have, many of them are not going away.
Right.
I do think that there does need to be a plan for some of those teachers that end up going into charter schools, because for a myriad of reasons, there are some teachers, very highly qualified, very good teachers out there that are at charter schools, and they a lot of times don't end up getting the luxuries of the bump up in salary or some of the privileges that may come with being in K through 12 education. And I know sometimes we in public schools be like, well, that's what you get. You went over there for that food.
I was going to say, I disagree.
I know that's what they're going to say, and I understand that. But having been
and the reason why I disagree is because that's part of the whole thing of a charter school, is having that autonomy from public education. There are some charter schools where teachers make more money than their public school counterparts. So,
but the thing about it is, they're starting to try to make more sweeping regulations with charter schools, where in some districts the charter schools have to align themselves with the public schools and have to meet the same standards and regulations as the public schools. If that's going to be the case, then I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud that it should be equitable.
Well, then they need to get unionized, and they can fight for all of that stuff that they need.
What about states that don't have unions?
The states need to be unions. They need to get unions.
Like, you got a whole state of Texas, which is what, the second
largest
state?
I don't claim the state of Texas. Texas and Florida can fall off the bottom. No, I'm just joking. I hear you what you're saying, and again, having worked in both, I've worked in charter and public, and seeing the difference, and I do have the luxury that I've always worked in a district that had a union, so I don't know what it's like to work in a district without a union. But working at a charter school was the closest I've ever come, and again, being in an environment where everybody, because the other thing about a charter school is you negotiate your salary. When I went in for my job interview, I negotiated my salary like I was buying a car. Like, we were writing down salaries on pieces of paper and sliding it across the desk. I don't know what the next teacher was making that had my qualifications. Some of them might have made more than me. Some of them might have made less than me. I negotiated what I thought I could get, So I don't know. You're right. That's going to be something that we wouldn't agree on, because I think because to me, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Charter schools want to be set aside from public school to be able to set their own policy and have their own rules and do whatever they want to do. You can't have it both ways. So the teachers can't say, "Oh, well, wait a minute. We want the freedom to be able to teach our kids however we want to teach our kids on this way, but we want all of the benefits that you guys get at the public school." No, you can't have it both ways. That's just my opinion.
Well, that's why when you have that middle area where you got private, that's definitely private, you got public, that's definitely public. Is and having that charter school where it's kind of like this hybrid, it muddies the water, because if that's the case, then I shouldn't. If you're not going to give me what public schools do, then don't make me required to do all of the things that public schools need to do. Don't make.
But a lot of them don't. I can't speak for your area.
I would say that's a state to state thing.
Yeah, because I was gonna say here you don't even have to be certified. You can teach at a
what I'm saying is I'm not talking about the teacher angle. I'm talking about just as a school, in terms of the student requirements and so forth for achieving a diploma and things like that. They require, in some areas, they require that students still have to take the standard, whatever statewide test in order to pass, and they have to meet these graduation credit requirements under the public school arm, and they still make the charter school responsible for that. Private schools aren't responsible for that at all.
Right.
And so what I'm saying is, if you're going to say that my students have to do and meet the same things that the public school students have to meet, then it can't be, you can't have it both ways that way either. If you're going to tell me I'm going to let y'all do your own thing and so forth, then you need to do that same thing with when it comes to the student requirements as well. It's just we started down that road, we never finished, but that's a whole nother conversation that we could have.
Need to put that on the list. Hold on, let me just start the list. We come up with the best ideas while we doing the show, and then we be talking like, well, what we gonna talk about? So listen, we got Nickel-B, and we already said we were gonna do Common Core because, yeah, as you can see, we disagree. But I think part of where me and El Teddy disagree on a lot of things, again, is that difference of coming into when you came into education. I think it's some of it, and then what you taught. I think it's some of it, and of course where you taught. Nickel-B, Common Core, because we're getting ready to do our last little segment and get on out of here, y'all. So El Teddy wanted us to come up with our.
I don't think that we're going to even do that. Do you just want to address the people who, because we almost been on an hour. Do you want to just address some of the names that they have out there?
I mean, we can, because I still don't listen. I don't, Dr. Seuss. Hell, I don't know. At this point, I just know who I don't want. She just got to go. But go ahead. Hold on. Oh, charter schools.
Right now, we have Weingarten. She's one of the
I've worked for Weingarten.
She's one of the top names out there. She is the president of, what is it? NEA or AFT?
AFT.
AFT.
That's the DC Teachers Union is under AFT.
Well,
Washington.
She is, and I'm just saying Weingarten, like y'all know who Weingarten is. Weingarten is Randi Weingarten, and she is the president of. She is the head of the American Federation of Teachers. She's the president of that. If you follow education things, you've seen her face around a lot. She's been at the helm for a long time. She's one name out there. The other big name that you have out there is Esco. What's the chick name? You know who I'm talking about. Let me find her name. You know who I'm talking about.
Wait a minute, hold up, pause, El Teddy. Miss Witt says that in Houston they do have a teachers union.
No, they have the Houston Federation of Teachers. Yes,
not the same.
It's not a union.
Oh, okay.
Texas law. They do have Houston Federation of Teachers, and it's not a union per se, but it is the collective of representatives of the teachers that can go and make and try to negotiate things, but it is not a union. That is Texas law. They are not allowed to have unions under Texas law.
Okay, so basically it's a loophole. It's as close as they can get to a union under the loop. Okay,
right.
Okay, gotcha. Okay,
That's
go ahead.
how in Texas every city can have its own school district. It's not like countywide like you have in a lot of areas. Every town, every school district can have their own school district. I mean, every town, every municipality. The other lady, whole I can't Lily Escosin Garcia, and she used to be the head of NEA. I know it was Escosin. But Lily Escosin Garcia, those are the two people who are being tossed around. Escosin Garcia is probably the people who most people think will get it because she's a minority, because she comes from the classroom. She started off as a cafeteria worker, and then she became a teacher, and she climbed the ranks, and she headed the National Educators Association. And so she's the former head of the NEA. A lot of people think that she will be a better pick than Weingarten, because the Republicans want no parts of Weingarten. No parts of her. Weingarten, I don't know if she will make it through Senate.
I'll be honest with you, I don't really want no parts of her either, but that's my own personal.
Some other names that I've seen floated out there is the head of the Baltimore public schools.
And I know I have friends that work directly. They're like assistant soups, and they love their CEO.
The name I'm gonna get it for you is I had it and then I lost it. I'm supposed this is my job. I'm supposed to have all of this stuff. What else? Who else? Oh, the representative Jahana Hayes, who was National Teacher of the Year some years ago. And she is a representative from Congress. And we got trolls, dear God.
Oh wow. The disfigured. Wow. That's not funny at all. Wow. Is Danny still in here to get it? If not, I'll go in.
I got it. I got it.
Okay.
I got it. But yeah, Jahana, representative, she is a congresswoman. She's the head of the I keep hearing the name of the head of the public school systems in Seattle, and I'm gonna get that person. That I'm supposed to have all this. L Teddy 27. Get your
no disrespect, but I do not want to see Arnie Duncan come back. No, ma'am, Pam. He's fine where he is, wherever he is doing, whatever he's doing.
So, Denise. Here it is right now. Denise Juneau is the name of the head of the Seattle Public Schools. Brenda Casilius, who's head of public schools in Boston. William Haidt of Philadelphia. Sonia Santillisis.
I know William Haidt too. I'm familiar with William Haidt as well. Yeah.
Sonia Santillisis, that's the lady from Baltimore. And those names have been floated out there as well. Yeah, so those are the names that are out there. I've heard a big push for the Juneau lady in Seattle. I've heard a big push for her. I know William Haidt is always the name that's thrown out there. you know, you hear his name a lot in circles, but
Yeah, you hear that name a lot. Yeah, I'm familiar with Dr. Height. Yeah. Dr.
so
Height actually I want to say worked in DC. I had so many in DC, I don't know, but I know the name.
yeah, so those are some names. I I'm familiar with William Height. I like William Height. I've heard some good things about him. I have never worked with him, but I hear his name. Now I've heard people throw out the name Richard Carranza from New York. Um, I don't know. You know, y'all say he stiffed y'all in Houston, but the man wanted to go to New York. If you have a choice between Houston and New York, you go to New York because New York is the biggest. Well, and also New York didn't want Carranza. New York wanted Alberto Cavallo, who's the head of the school district in Miami-Dade County. They wanted him. That's who they originally wanted. And Alberto Cavallo told them no.
Oh, my bad, Danny. I thought you were. Okay, I had to. Okay, my bad. Yeah, the reality is, the one thing I can say for myself, my main qualification is I want an educator. I want a former educator. I want someone who has done it. That doesn't mean that I'm going to agree with everything that they say, because you see, me and El Teddy don't agree on everything, and we're both educators. But I need somebody who has been on the front lines. We may not agree with everything, but you at least have empathy and understand. You understand what I'm saying? And I get the difference between being a policy maker, being an administrator. Like, I get all of that, but I just need somebody that's been on the front lines. I just absolutely need that. That is just what I need. And that is what when you asking me what I need or what I require, what I want, that's at the top of my wish list. As far as the names are concerned, honestly, El Teddy,
I just want somebody black. I'm not gonna be honest. I'm not gonna lie to you. So I'm here for Height or Santillisis. I want somebody black. Call me whatever you want to. You want to have all of these sweeping reforms for Title One and low income, and we know what that means. That means that you're directing attention towards students of color, black and brown students. Fine. Then have somebody at the helm who knows what it is to be black and brown.
I hear you. Listen, I
So
hear you.
if
I hear
if
you.
it's me, I'm going with either Height or Santillisis. But who I'm not going with is Garcia or Weingarten.
Well, like I
Because
said, I worked for Weingarten. When I worked for the union, I worked for the AFT. Well, I worked for the Washington Teachers Union, but the position that I was in many a meeting with Weingarten. She knew me, I knew her. I saw a lot of stuff, heard a lot of things, and she ain't my vote. I'm just gonna say it. She ain't my vote. Nobody is perfect. Understanding you're leading a large organization, but you know, I truly felt like, and even though the AFT offices were right here in Washington, D.C., and that's probably why we spent so much FaceTime with them, because we could go right over to the office, but we had a lot of issues here in our D.C. Teachers Union, and I truly felt like the attitude of Randi Weingarten and the AFT as our parent company was, let them black folk figure it out, because you figure the majority of the teachers at that time were black, all of the leadership was black, and I really truly felt like when we had issues and we had legitimate concerns, the response from the AFT was not equal to the response that other locals got when they had the same issues that were of a different makeup. Y'all understand what I'm saying? So that's my attitude. That's how I feel about it. I just feel like Randi, and I mean, I'm being very politically correct when I say it, but I really, that's how I felt working under the AFT, and she surrounded herself with henchmen that would do the dirty work for her that looked like us, and you know what I'm talking about. So they sent the black man down to tell us what they weren't gonna do, but when it was time for a photo op, here she come. So yeah, no, she ain't my vote. She ain't nope, no ma'am, Pam. Anyway, and I could go deeper,
tell
but
us how you really feel.
well, I could go deeper, but I'm trying to keep
No,
it real.
we're not gonna let you go down this
That's what I
rabbit
said.
hole.
I'm trying to keep it. Listen,
Yeah, no, ma'am. We ain't gonna
I'm
let you
trying to
go
keep
down
it
this rabbit hole.
very politically correct.
God.
Okay.
Lord, because you know you love to get trapped. Anyway,
moving on. But anyway, we're at an hour.
yes, but pay attention to education. Pay attention to who he picks. And like I said, pay attention to that Senate seat, those Senate seats in Georgia.
Please, guys, if you live in Georgia, you have friends in Georgia, you drive past Georgia. If you're turning 18 before January, I believe it's January the 5th, you are eligible to vote in the runoff election. Please, please, please register, take a friend, carry a friend. Those Senate seats are beyond important. I can't stress, I don't have the vocabulary. El Teddy, you have the vocabulary. Tell us how important it is. Give us one of them big ass 20-syllable SAT words you come up with, okay? Tell us, El Teddy.
I know you just put me on the spot.
Whatever.
Conjure up words; they just flow effortlessly out of my mouth.
You have a dictionary that weighs more than my nephew. You can come up with.
It does. It does.
But go ahead.
But anyway, though, it is. I don't know. You just put me on the spot. My brain just left me. Anyway, but it is of utmost importance that you all take these elections seriously. Now, the pessimist in me has to think worst case scenario. So I'm always thinking worst case scenario. In depending on how the Senate shakes out, that's going to probably determine who Biden picks for those seats. That's going to be instrumental in that.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So after with all that being said, yeah, I think we had a great show today. We got more things.
I think we did too. I thank you guys for being here. Thank you for sharing. Everybody who shared this on their Facebook, their LinkedIn. There you go, there you go, Abby. Register to vote expeditiously. There you go, Abby. I like it. Expeditiously. That every time I hear expeditiously, all I think of is lean on me. But anyway,
right. You know, I have that shirt that says "Move expeditiously" too, with Joe Clark and the bullhorn on it.
But thank you guys as always for the support. Those of you who are here, if you have any questions, you think of anything, the email is scrolling at the bottom. Please, be sure to reach out to us and send us information you would like us to talk about. We're going to be more regular. I kind of got over the hump. In education, you go through peaks and valleys. The last couple of weeks, I had so much going on. I was in a little bit of a valley, but we peaking again. We peaking.
Mm-hmm. That didn't stop her from getting her reviews out, though.
No, actually, it did. I'm behind on my reviews, too.
I'm behind on mine, too, but at least I'm behind.
Okay, well, there you go. I'm still behind on my reviews, sir. Don't do me. Don't do me.
I am going to try to get a wire out today. That's my goal. My goal today is a wire. That is my goal today. So let me do what I got to do. Let me get my.
Well, we get ready to get off of here now. Final words, El Teddy.
I do need to do a Sunday Saturday. I might not. I don't know. But anyway, all I have to say is let's just remember COVID is still out there. Please monitor your school websites, your school district websites, your homeschool website, your state Department of Education websites, because there are closures that are coming. The COVID is exploding. We are way worse than we were when we originally closed in March. Yeah. So you really need to monitor and be prepared. If you are a parent of a high school or middle school child, you need to prepare for them not to go back to school at all this school year. You need to be prepared for that, because there's the real possibility your child may not go back. Your child may not enter their school building this school year, I should say. Mm-hmm. So that's a real possibility. And there are a lot of school districts that are telling parents that. So I wanted to put that out there. COVID is it is real right now. We got our first state with over 1 million cases, the great state of Texas.
Yeah.
So
California Texas was the first state to reach over 1 million, and California became the second. So I anticipate California getting ready to go into some stricter restrictions really soon, because their government was very proactive at the beginning of this. I think California was one of the first states to go into quarantine. So the fact that they just reached, I mean, don't get me wrong, they have one of the highest populations as well, but still, yeah, I'm with you, El Teddy. We're going to definitely get.
Yeah. So look for it. Please be present. And next time we meet, I will do what I do. And give you all updated information on closures that may be coming. Y'all know I'll have my water ready.
I agree. We have to donate to the El Teddy Water Fund.
Right. So I have something to drink to lubricate
right.
as I'm going through state by state the closures of the public school front. So that's all I have for y'all. Yeah.
All right, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. We will see y'all next time. Love y'all. Peace. Ooh.